Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Sias. Today, I feel like it's a good episode, but truthfully, I just want to start off by saying, God damn, Canelo messed up my boy Billy Joe Saunders, knocked him out with a vicious uppercut, and my God, I was there ringside. What an experience. 73,000 people in the stands roaring for Canelo Alvarez. Clearly, it was me rooting for Billy Joe Saunders and maybe Tyson Fury and a few other people. It was absolutely insane. I got really, really lucky to get some really good seats on the floor for a really, really good price. And I got to say that the event was fantastic. Uh, First things first, Billy Joe Saunders. I have to sit here and say, Billy Joe Saunders, I've been a fan for a long time. And I'm one of these guys that when you're my boy and I really do like you and I mess with you, I'm going to ride with you to the end, right? I can't claim myself to be a Billy Joe Saunders fan. And when he's fighting the best and biggest task of his life in Canelo Alvarez, just abandon the guy. I said it after his performance with Martin Murray that, you know what, Canelo Alvarez may be a daunting task for him. And when I make my prediction, I got to say, Billy Joe Saunders gave a fantastic account of himself. Canelo is just Canelo at this point, and he's just peaking at the perfect time. I mean, he fought a perfect fight. I like the way he was staying patient. You saw clearly in the first round, even as Sergio Mora mentioned, he was trying to set up that uppercut. And little by little, you saw him break down Billy Joe Saunders, who was stabbing that right hand to the body every time Billy Joe tried moving to the right. He completely shut it off by throwing a hook, or when he threw the hook, he grabbed him behind the head and that ran him right into the uppercut. So Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound number one. Obviously, at this point, if you don't think Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound number one, you're either a hater or just delusional. But I do have to say, and in boxing, I know they say there are no moral victories. I know people say that, hey, you didn't win. Either you win or you lose. But in my opinion, in this fight, I did see Billy Joe Saunders throughout the fight mature. It was the first time that he ever was on the world stage. It was the first time that he ever even remotely fought someone as good as Canelo Alvarez. And I got to say, I was impressed with his development. First round, clearly you saw he got caught up in the moment. Let's be honest. That first round, he was moving around. You saw he was nervous. He really couldn't get into his rhythm. You didn't see any feints. You didn't see what Billy Joe Saunders normally does against lesser opposition. You didn't see him establish a good jab. His movement looked good, and Canelo was just patiently waiting to land the punch he wanted to land. And I thought Billy Joe possibly could have won round one, but when I'm telling you in the stadium after round one, I didn't even know who really won the round because every time Canelo did something, the crowd was roaring. And at that point, I knew, all right, there's no way because I was ringside. I was having a hard time judging the fight, and I feel like I'm pretty proficient in scoring rounds, and I'm pretty fair. And I got to sit here and say, live, there was no way I could give round one to Billy Joe Saunders. Honestly, rewatching it, I had a different opinion, and I'll just kind of share with you guys more or less the differences. Live, Billy Joe Saunders maybe won one or two rounds. I had him winning round 4 and 5, in my opinion. Round one, I gave to Canelo. Round two, I gave to Canelo. Round three, I thought Billy Joe Saunders did better, but live, I'm telling you, Canelo Alvarez just looked ferocious. I couldn't see the jumbotron. I was just looking ringside, and with everything that was going on, it was just really, really hard to score this fight fairly. And then came the round where Billy Joe Saunders got hit in the eye, and I'm gonna let you know when that punch landed. I personally thought Billy Joe just got hurt and he was moving around. He was just trying to move around, but I had no idea what was going to happen next. So where I was sitting, I was like 10 rows out, and with AT&T Stadium, they have this big, big jumbotron that you can watch the fight if you're further out. But given the fact that I was under, I couldn't see any of the screens. So I'm talking like, damn, Billy Joe has to step it up. It looked like he was finding his rhythm. You saw him use a couple of switches. You saw him really giving Canelo fits at certain points. And then he even hit him with that double left to the body and then finished up to the head. And I thought, oh wow, maybe he could fight. But I didn't have him winning the fight. Nowhere did I have him winning the fight, especially live when I watched it. I did not think Billy Joe Saunders was winning that fight. But I did see a competitive fight. It wasn't this trouncing that like people are saying online. I don't think Billy Joe got annihilated. I mean, he bent down into a Canelo Alvarez uppercut. You bend and the punch comes. It's like two cars colliding head on. And look, he broke his eye socket. Hindsight 2020. But when the round stopped, first thing I looked at it was like, yo, did this guy just quit on the stool? Like, what happened? Because Billy got hit and then finished the round off. And then all of a sudden, Canelo came out and started jumping, and the team was all happy. And I'm like, what? Like, what happened? So at this point, being kind of the New Yorker that I am, and like I've been to a couple of fights, but after a fight, to me, is when a lot of issues happen. And during the main event, a lot of issues happen as well. There were a bunch of fights. It was absolutely insane with that many people. Um, I kind of just was like, look, fight's over. I could watch the interviews on the zone. I can catch all this stuff up. Let me just leave. So right when the fight was over, I dipped out. Then I said, hey, look, I'm gonna take a day just to kind of digest, kind of see what happened. Like the fight was incredible. I'm so happy for Canelo. The fight with Caleb Plant will be massive, given the fact that he's really trying to unify and become undisputed champion. And regardless of whatever you say, you have to admit that it's an impressive feat to become the first undisputed champion at 168. Doesn't matter what weight it is. In order to be undisputed, you have to win against champion after champion. And it's hard, especially with all the mandatories. You have to do this, you have to do that. And the fact that Canelo Alvarez fought Billy Joe Saunders in a fight for 3 belts in front of 73,000 people, and to have the performance he had, you gotta just give it to him right now. He's undoubtedly number one. But then I watched the fight at home. And when I watched the fight at home, I saw the fight a little closer. I did give Billy Joe Saunders 3 rounds. I gave him round 1. And 2 other rounds, I believe it was 4 and 5, if I'm not mistaken. Just I watched this on Sunday. And after that, I just had Canelo winning. I don't know how Chris Mannix had the scorecard where Billy Joe Saunders was winning in like big fashion. He really had Billy Joe up. And I I could understand where he's coming from in certain points, but Canelo Alvarez just really has become such a patient and calm fighter. His sharpness is second to none. His timing is fantastic. And Billy Joe was trying to get into his rhythm. He tried doing a little bouncing and feinting, but by the time he did it, he just kept being repetitive, and that's what got him caught. He tried making the same move once or twice. And I had mentioned this before in my Boo Boo Andrade breakdown with Canelo, that when you fight the better guys, the stuff that works against other people stops working. It may work once, it may work twice, but you keep showing the same move to someone that knows how to attack it. You fool them once, fool them twice. You're not going to fool them again. And that's what happened. So I saw this fight as a maturity fight for Billy Joe Saunders. He realized that, wow, it's different at this level, but he did show that he can compete with a world class fighter. Just not many world class fighters are Canelo level. And Canelo answered all the questions that I had about him if he had addressed the issues against lefties, because he hadn't fought one in 8 years. And Canelo is a good fighter. Like, he's a great fighter. I know people are going to say, oh, he cherry picks all this stuff. But at this point, cut it out. Like, the guy has fought the who's who and is cleaning out a division that isn't that uncompetitive. Right. So I I personally think Canelo had a masterful performance. And I know people said that he was going to stop Billy Joe Saunders, but cut it out. Like no one knew he was going to break the guy's eye in four ways. Now, did Billy Joe Saunders quit? I also wanted to touch on that. At first glance, again, I'm going to preface, I couldn't really see what happened. So all of a sudden, fight's over. I'm like, no, don't tell me he just quit on a stool because he got hurt and something happened. But then rewatching the fight on TV in the zone, I like he didn't quit. I understand the argument for why you say he should get scrutinized for stopping, and after all the things he said about, oh, I'll die on my cross, I'll get carried out the ring. All these things are things you have to say. And as a fighter, he was getting killed by so many different fighters for, I fought with this and I fought with that. And there comes a point where, look, people just have to stop with the opining. Like, there's going to be so many different positions, and that's okay. But it's not about you. I don't understand how a fight about Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo Alvarez becomes where every fighter starts posting, oh, my eye was this and I fought through. Oh, my eye was this and I fought through. Yeah, your eye was that and you fought through, but you weren't fighting fucking Canelo Alvarez. Like, your eye shattered in 4 places and you're fighting Canelo fucking Alvarez. You're not fighting Cotto. No disrespect to Cotto, but Cotto's never been number 1 pound for pound ever. I love Cotto. I'm a big fan, but he wasn't Canelo Alvarez, right? Paulo Malignaggia mentioned that. Then Fernando Vargas was talking about how, oh yeah, I fought with this. My eyes messed up. Yeah, but you weren't fighting fucking Canelo Alvarez. I'm sorry for the cursing, but you weren't fighting Canelo Alvarez. You were fighting Shane Mosley, right? On the older end of it. And it wasn't the same fight. I'm pretty sure it was Mosley or Mayorga, but it was one of them. Still, you weren't fighting Canelo Alvarez. And 2, his eye socket got broken the round before. The guy moved around for a minute and fought. He didn't take a knee. He didn't do all these things that people normally do when they're injured, right? For Christ's sakes, their fighter like Daniel. I know they keep talking about he was making fun of Daniel Dubois and all these, but Daniel Dubois took a knee, if I'm not mistaken. He couldn't see and took a knee. Billy Joe had his eye socket broken and he fought through to the end of the round and his coach stopped it. And at that point, I know fighters could say whatever you want to say, but the coach's job, and me being a coach myself, is to protect the fighter because the fighter is not going to protect themselves, right? At the end of the day, the fighter is going to want to go out there because of this code of, hey, no mas, oh, yeah, okay, macho. Or I understand that. You're a fighter. You got machismo. You want to do all these things that are hard. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you're fighting, right? Like, this is what we're doing here. So I get it, but at the same time, look at what was going on. Billy Joe Saunders was trying to win the fight. He was fighting Canelo Alvarez. The last thing you want to do is go out there and fight with his eye was completely shut. He wasn't winning the fight. And sure, it was competitive, but Billy Joe showed he belongs at the world level regardless. And he went to win that fight. And I know people were mad at, how he was trying to pull out and all these things. Look, that was just mind games. It was shit talk. It was to build the fight. People were really, really talking about it. And you guys just got to realize he lost the fight, but Billy Joe didn't quit. Come on. Like, the guy had his orbital bone broken in 4 places, hindsight 2020. We know the facts. And sure, he said that about Daniel Dubois. And I get the arguments as to why you guys are going to call him a quitter. Like, I understand the scrutiny, but look at the facts and you'll see something different. It wasn't like, hey, saying this, but the Daniel Dubois issue, he was getting jabbed by Joe Joyce the entire fight. He was getting clipped. He was getting hit. It was something that his eyes swole up. And look, it was a bad injury. He had an orbital bone fracture as well. He took a knee and protected his career. Now, I wasn't very critical of Joe Joyce because I wasn't very critical of Daniel Dubois because he had the fracture and he took a knee and he fought well and he fought valiantly. But the problem is when you're a fighter and you take the oath that you're going to go in the ring, right? Unfortunately, this is just something that's going to be said. Fighters are going to critique other fighters. People are going to critique you no matter what you do. So you got to do what's best for your career. If he fought on and Canelo Alvarez kept punching his with the uppercut and he actually landed another hook on top of that, a lot of people don't talk about that. What do? Are you going to be blind for some pretend like medal that people are going to say, "Oh, you quit, you quit, you quit"? It wasn't no mas where you just kind of like, "Hey, I'm done, I'm out of here." Guy's orbital bone was broken, and his coach stopped it. It wasn't even him. So, uh, I get the scrutiny, and upon like watching, I was like, "What the hell happened?" But I didn't really get to see the whole thing because of where I was, and like it was pandemonium in there. So, who knows what happens? Um, then I did want to touch on. Actually, I'll touch on that in another episode. I'll just make it a complete Canelo Alvarez versus Boo Boo Andrade's controversy that happened where he was talking trash to Canelo Alvarez, and this guy. Oh my god. Well, that's the episode for today. Canelo, masterful performance. I love the uppercut. I mean, it was perfect. Perfect timing. Caught him going down. He ran right into it. Like, my God, that was such a good uppercut. Being there, it was hard to judge. I'm not going to lie to you because, look, 73,000 people. Canelo took a breath and the crowd went crazy. When he did the whole, after he heard Billy Joe and just started making the crowd roar, Billy Joe just was in over his head. And that's what happens when you fight at the highest of the high. And this wasn't just world class level. This is like Canelo level. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's in another stratosphere right now. It looks like he addressed some of the issues. There were spots where Billy Joe has some success, but these guys can't mess with Canelo. Caleb Plant's not gonna beat Canelo. We're just looking at greatness, and he's gonna achieve it when he fights Caleb Plant. Uh, it's to me a foregone conclusion, but that's why we fight. And I think that's the fight that could happen and will happen next. I get there's Benavidez out there. I feel like Benavidez has the best chance to beat him because he's actually offensively proficient and will throw punches and go forward. He's taller. A lot of the stuff that works on guys that are around Canelo's height won't work on Benavidez, and he's tough and he's familiar with Mexican style. But cut it out with the Andrade, cut it out with Charlo. All these guys, look, you have to keep it in perspective. Canelo Alvarez is trying to be undisputed champion. First time at 168 that it's ever been done. And he's also he's trying to build his Mexican legacy and just try to be a big name in Mexican boxing and in boxing history in general. So when you have a goal, all these other people that are ancillary, like, oh, you're afraid, oh, you're this, it's like, come on. These guys are fighters. No one's afraid to fight anyone. And why would Canelo be afraid to fight anyone? He's already lost. He lost to Floyd Mayweather. He made a bunch of money. He fought really good guys he shouldn't have fought. Like, who would have taken that Lara fight? He took it. Sure, was it a controversial decision for some people? Yeah, but he took the fight, right? He fought Kovalev. He fought Triple G not once, but twice. So, like, Andrade's not going to knock him out, right? Charlo isn't going to knock Canelo out. Charlo hasn't fought anyone. Big Charlo fought Korobov and Derevchenko. Come on. So, like, no disrespect. Just call Canelo what he is. Right now, he's king. He has all the cards. And look, with performances like this, it makes sense why he calls all the shots. And he's the best right now. It's undoubtedly number one. I say this in all my podcasts. There's no more argument. Terrence Crawford is not in the argument to be pound for pound number one. It's Canelo Alvarez. Saul Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound number one. Cut it out with the Crawford. Cut it out with a bunch of other people. Right now, it's King Canelo. And he beat my guy. I was rooting against him. My prediction was wrong. All right, cool. It was Canelo. He was a minus 800. So 5-1 odds. He's my guy. I'm picking my guy every time, and I don't care if I'm wrong because, again, you look at the evidence until the question is answered. That's what you got to do. Well, that's the episode for today. I look forward to a bunch of them. I got a couple of cool stories too that I want to upload, but be well.